Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of our photography review show. I hope that you all had a great week and I hope you're ready for more photography fun. Now, if you've never been here before, my name is Jakub. I'm a professional landscape photographer here in West Sussex, England, and I'm also founder and creator here at Clever Photographer. Now, this show is my way of keeping in touch with our incredible photography community, and my goal here is to help you to keep moving forward with your photography journey. Every week, we have a number of photographers sending over their images, and what I do here, I look at them and give you feedback on 3 parts of each of the photo. First, I look at the technical part. This is where I look at things like your camera settings, the gear, the quality of the technique. This is where I look at things like noise, sharpness, exposure, and all that fun stuff, which really is the building stone of good image. After that, we look at the artistic part. This is where we look at things like your subject, the composition, framing, storytelling, the main subject, and all that really together with the technique build the perfect photo. And on the top of it, of course, because our channel is focusing on photo editing, if I think that there is a benefit to it, I try to give you some tips and tricks on how you could improve your photo editing. Now, for the photo editing part, we use application called Luminar Neo, and if you never heard about it, which would be surprised if you hear at Clever Photographer YouTube channel, but if you haven't, then head to our website cleverphotographer.com or directly to skylum.com, who are the designers behind this incredible photo editing application. But don't worry if you don't have it, most of the editing I'm gonna be doing can be made on any similar photo editing application or any current photo editing application, so you should be able to do it on what you already own. Anyway, that's about what we're gonna do. Now, if you would want to join us with your own pictures, we do this pretty much every week on Tuesday. It always goes on our YouTube channel and also on our Facebook page. And basically, to join us, you just need to join our membership. It's called Clever Photographer Plus, and you can find out more about it on our website, cleverphotographer.com/membership. Once you get there, you will find out that this membership includes 3 things. Well, access to this photography review show. You can submit your own photos. Then you get access to our Facebook group, Clever Photographer Academy. But most importantly, and probably the main reason why most of our subscribers are with us, is that every month you get incredible digital tool bundle for photographers. Each of the month it focuses on different photography styles. So for example, in September it was autumn photography, in August it was nature photography, and so on. Each of these bundles includes about 300 different digital elements, and you will find there everything from your presets for Luminar Neo, Lightroom and Photoshop, overlays, textures, LUTs, backgrounds, custom brushes, brushes for Lightroom, and so much more. So one more time, if you want to find out more about it, head to our website cleverphotographer.com/membership. So now you know who I am, you also know what we're gonna be doing today, and you know how you can join us in the future. So this is all out of the way, and we can start with the show. Okay, so moving into Luminar Neo, where we're gonna start with the reviews. Most of the show will happen here in the catalog module, where we can see the images as well as the camera details. So starting with landscape photographers, we have 3 of them today, and the first one is Caroline. Now let me make the images nice and big. Let's have a look. Maybe like this, or even bigger. No, maybe this will be enough. So we have 2 images from Caroline. One right here with this beautiful sunset or golden hour, and then one here. Now Caroline, I had a look, and as far as my memory goes, I already reviewed this image for you in January. I look back and it's actually in the show on 23rd of January. So if you want to check out the review for that, go ahead and do that, because I already look at it and we have lots of photos. So we're going to focus on this one today. Anyway, Caroline, so looking at the camera details first and looking at the technical part. Here we are looking at the image captured with Canon 5D Mark IV with the camera lens 70 to 200 millimeters. Now, looking at the camera details or the camera settings more, ISO 100, which for landscape photography, great. We looking for as low as possible, where the ISO 100 is a perfect result, making sure that we have as little digital noise as possible. Now, so we have ISO 100. Then f11, good choice right there, making sure that we have a sharpness all the way through, and 1/50th of a second. So all this looks very good. Yeah, nice and low ISO. f11, generally, as I always say, f7.1 to f11 is a good choice for most of the current camera lenses, and 1/50th of a second giving us nice light with the sky being kind of dreamy frozen. And now we're gonna check for the sharpness, which is very good. I really like the sharpness and structure. Noise, pretty much none, so that's all good as well. The exposure, well, it's more on a darker side, but that's more kind of editing choice than anything else. So in overall, technically, I think this is very well captured. Caroline, moving on the artistic part, talking about the composition, framing, and so on. So I like lots here, positioning this, whatever it is, castle, chapel, temple, in this part, in that kind of lower third, I think can work really, really well. Now, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, if I go into crop here, you should be able to see it. So basically, you have the 2/3, 1, 2, and 3, and then again from the other side, 1, 2, and 3. So they are divided between these lines, and where the lines cross, that's where a golden point is. And traditionally, positioning the main subjects of the image on these crosses can really create very pleasing composition. And in this case, as you can see, the temple on the third works really well. Now, there is another use of the thirds here, which works really well, and it's something that I really like to use as well as a landscape photographer, and that's using the horizontal thirds as a kind of divider between a sky and a landscape. Now, I always say that the rule can be used two ways. If the sky is working as a supporting act, it's just there to finish the scene and just to help the image, then generally I like to use about 1/3 of the sky in the image. Then the 2/3 focusing on the land and on the main subject. However, if it's the opposite, if the sky is super beautiful and really plays a big part of the image, sometimes it's a good idea to apply it in a way that you have 2/3 of the sky and 1/3 of the land. I think that can work really well, and this is a great example of it. So I really like the image, very well captured, very well composed, put together, Caroline. Also, the kind of foreground, the main subject, as soon as you look at the image, you know what it's about. The overall feel of it is great. Now, talking about photo editing, for my liking, I think it's just touch a little bit too warm. I would just lower the warmth just a tiny bit, maybe just a little, maybe just like something like a -10. That would be what I would do there. But more importantly, I would probably make it just a little bit brighter. Now you can do using something like shadows, open them up and get a little bit more detail. So you can use exposure, or in fact, here in Luminar Neo, there is a tool called Enhance AI, which is quite good for this because it basically scans the image and applies the different edits across it, balancing everything together. So I think something like this can really help to balance the overall look. And again, we can go into color tool, which kind of help to remove a little bit of the color cast and of the overall warmth. So that's about as much as I would do for it. Just again, keep an eye on the sensor dust like this here. You can use any of erase tools in all these applications, or here in Luminar Neo, you can use something called remove dust spots. You basically just click on it, it scans the image, look for the spots and remove them automatically. So before and after. Anyway, Caroline, it's a lovely photo. Thank you very much for sending it over. It was a pleasure to look at it. Look at the episode from 23rd of January where I have reviewed this one. And again, as always, if you had more images, make sure you send them over to us so I can look at them in the next episode. Okay, so moving to another photographer, this time it's Elizabeth and her 2 landscape captures. Elizabeth actually sent us 2 sets of photos where one of them is raw and one of them is already edited. So let's jump straight into it, starting with this image. This is Canon RP Tamron 28 to 300 millimeters with the camera settings, well, ISO 500, f13 1/500 of a second. Looking at the image, well, kind of higher ISO here. So when we zoom in, you can already see the noise in the sky as well as in some of the details there. With the f13 and the higher ISO, often what also happen is this kind of not distorted, but a little bit pixelated foreground. You can see it clearly in the darker areas where we pretty much losing the details. And I think it's a little bit shame. So definitely keep an eye on the ISO. If you need to get it lower and can't, maybe a tripod is a good idea, or rest your camera over something to get a little bit sharper result, because then you could go lower with the ISO and you could also maybe go faster with your shutter speed or lower with the f-stop. Anyway, moving on, nice exposure, that all works there very well. A little bit of sensor dust. So the main things are the noise and sharpness. Now, looking at the edited image, so I like the panorama cropping here, so that can work quite nicely. The 1/3 of the sky, 2/3 of the land, again, can work really, really well. However, there are some stuff which I think make it a little bit unnatural. So for example, the darker top and the darker bottom, even though I use that quite a lot, you really need to use a little bit stronger gradient here, and that way it will look much more natural. Also, by using or darkening the sky much more, you will get this kind of halo, which again really highlight the editing and just doesn't look very natural in connection with this very natural landscape. Well, other than that, the foreground, middle ground, background, the scale, all of that can work really well. I also like the overall balance, which work well. It's more the photo editing. So talking about photo editing, let's quickly jump into this one. What I would do, I would crop it to something like 16:9. Definitely you can rotate it if you want to, or you don't have to. It's up to you. Something like this. We can use Enhance AI just to basically open everything up. After that, maybe just touch of magenta to remove some of the green haze. So somewhere around here. And I think that's about it. If we want, we can also enhance a little bit the sky, just somewhere around here. And at the same time, it basically makes it a little bit darker and it kind of balances everything together. Just very quickly, taking care of the dust spot using the erase tool. And after that, yeah, just whatever you would like to do with it, a little bit of golden upper fill to highlight a little bit of the warmth, or just basically add different elements. You can, of course, use the vignette to close the top and the bottom, or you can again use the basically line, the darker line at the bottom, which generally is done by minus exposure and linear gradient from the bottom up. So let's say somewhere around here. But you really want a big gradient, so it looks much more natural. So when I go back to the adjustment and I'll bring it down, you will see how smoothly it basically adds the gradient from the darker area into the brighter. So that's about it for this photo. Looking at it, this is my version and your version. You can see how this one is just a little bit more natural. Moving on with your photos, now we have this one and this one after the edit. So let's go ahead and look at the camera settings for here. Now talking about Tamron 28 to 300 millimeters again on the lens, Canon RP on the body, ISO 100, f13 and 1/100 of a second. So nice and low ISO here. That's all good there. F13, again, a little bit higher. Try to stick between f7.1 and f11. It will give you definitely better result. And also by going down on the f-stop, you will be able to use faster shutter speed and get a little bit more details. Now, in general, there is not really a big problem here. There's a good sharpness. It's not pinpoint sharp. There's a little movement. You can see it on these areas, but it's much better than the first image. Noise, very manageable. What the problem is here with the exposure is this area, which you can see is super dark, and I can already imagine that it will be difficult to recover the details there. And you can really see it on the image when you edit it. You can see how pixelated it is, how you lose the details, and how kind of unnatural contrast it show you. So definitely something to keep an eye on. When you have this quite big dynamic range between the different parts of the image, between the brighter and darker, you maybe want to use other techniques like the HDR, where you would basically take 3 images, one for the brighter part, one for the normal exposure, and one for the darker part. And then when you blend them together, you get details all the way through. For this area, there's not much you can do. You can try to open it up a little bit with some of these tools like Enhance AI, or you can try to open the shadows. But when you do that, you can see it's still much darker. And again, when you start to really open it, you will see how much noise and how much the texture is lost there. So this is more in-camera fix, because I think other than that, your edit actually looks very good. I really like it. It's very natural, a little bit of warmth, nice texture. The sky looks good. So it's more this part and finding a way how you can get more details in this area in your camera. So Elizabeth, thank you very much for sending both of the images over. It was my pleasure to review them for you. And if you have more, make sure you send them to us in the next episode. Okay, third time lucky, it's time to look at the third landscape photographer, and this time it's Tommy. Tommy is a new photographer. I haven't seen his pictures yet. So let's go ahead and start with the first capture of these windmills here. Now, looking at it, it looks like it was captured with Samsung NX2000. Now, I'm not very knowledgeable about this camera, but looking at it, the lens for it was 18 to 55 millimeters. And looking at the camera settings, ISO 200, f10 and 1/500 of a second. So nice and low ISO. The 200, 100, 200 is ideally the goal we're looking for to avoid adding any additional noise into our images. Then the f10, I keep saying it all the time, especially to landscape photographers. I really think that most of the standard lenses, the kind of normal priced ones, really perform very well between f7.1 and f11. At that point, you get a great sharpness, the lens performs really well, and I think it just works very well. So f10, great choice. f10, making sure that we have a sharpness all the way, and the 1/500 of a second, obviously just kind of working on very well together with the exposure, with the details in the sky, with the overall brightness, just all of that, well done, no problem there. Now we have a tiny bit of noise in the sky, which altogether really looks more cinematic than anything else. It doesn't really look as a mistake, so it's all good there. I don't have a problem with that. The sharpness is great. You can see it pretty much all the way through, but especially in the foreground, which works well. The overall exposure is nice. It's a little bit darker, but more my style. I really like this. I really like this kind of heavier contrasty image. Nice sky. Already the gradient at the bottom is definitely something I really like to do as well. So well edited and well put together, Tommy. So technically well done. Now talking about the artistic part, the composition and how it's put together, portrait captures can actually absorb much more variation to composition. People don't really realize that, where the landscape image, you need to be quite creative and you need to stick with the rules to often make it work. With the portrait, you can be a little bit more ambitious, I would say. And here, I think lots of things work, like the flow, the opening of the road or path works super well, already leading the eyes through the image. Then clear main subjects with the windmills, making it really dominant and making it clear to let us know what we're looking at. The sky looks great as well, giving us great backdrop for these windmills. The contrast of the colors works really well. The texture in the sky, the overall work with the gradients and vignette works really well. So altogether, to me, it's beautiful image, and I'm really happy what you done, how you capture it, the composition, as well as the editing. The editing in overall, nice contrast colors, lovely saturation, lovely work with the gradients, just well put together. Well done to me. Now, moving on the second capture. So now we're going to the more traditional landscape crop. Again, is it the same camera? Let's have a look. Yes, it looks like it's the Samsung NX2000. Now, lens, it's not written here, but maybe it just didn't capture. Anyway, from the camera settings here, ISO 200, f8, and 1/160th of a second. So again, low ISO, kind of zooming in. All good there. A good sharpness, even with the f8, 1/160th of a second. Give you a slight blur on the people, which is not a problem, but actually gives you nice texture into the water. So altogether, all of that works all nicely. Now, talking about more technical stuff, the sharpness is good. Noise, pretty much no problem here. Brightness, again, a little bit darker contrasted look, but all good there. Talking about the artistic part. Artistically, okay, so because I also do replace sky, I would assume that you did the sky replacement here, and often it's kind of visible when you have these fragments around. You can see either there is a flag missing or there is a part missing, and that kind of is a quite good giveaway that you've done something with the sky. Let's have a look if you can see it anywhere further. No, here it worked. So mostly it's just pulled there. So as I say, either it's a heavy editing for a sky or the sky is replaced. And if this happened to me, generally I just remove the whole post, and that way I remove the giveaway from the image. So that's about that. Now, artistically, it's just a shame that these two benches are kind of cropped away. I focus on the edges a lot. Basically because I print lots of my images and I know how easy it is to lose half an inch around the image when you put it in the frame, hide it under the white passepartout around it. Just so easy to get too tight, and I always kind of look at my images and try to have a little bit of extra space around. So definitely something to keep an eye on the benches. In overall, it's a nice opening. It's just a shame that it's a little bit off balance of the building. So, you know, we are a little bit on a sideway. So if you would put it on a scale, the image would kind of lean towards one way. So that's just one thing to look at. But otherwise, it's really lovely. The flow of the image, the foreground, middle ground, and background, the main subject, the interesting sky, the overall look, the dramatic feel. I think it works very well. So Tommy, both of the images are very lovely. Thank you for sending them over. I'm a big fan of the first one. I think there's lots of stuff done right. The editing, the composition is great. The capture is great. So yeah, well done. Thank you for sending your image over. And if you have more of them, please make sure that you send them for our next episode. Moving on, now we're going to look at the category of mixed photographers. And basically what it means is that the two different images they send us don't necessarily by default fall into any specific category. Like here, Weasley, where we have a portrait image and a little bit more like a travel photo right here. So starting here, let's jump straight to it. We have this raw file captured by Nikon Z7 with a 28 to 300 millimeters from the camera settings, ISO 400, 32 millimeters f4 and 1/1250th of a second. So looking at it, yeah, ISO for portrait photography for this kind of conditions, 400, all good there. Nice and low f-stop. 1/1250th of a second should give you very good sharpness, which definitely is the case. All good there. The noise is very manageable, so no problem there. The light, yeah, coming from this side, giving you a really nice scene. All in all, I think, yeah, well captured. No problem there. It all looks good. So this is where we're gonna move into the edited image, where we have obviously got a reduce of some of the vignetting. We made the sky darker, created a little bit more contrast, just kind of work with everything to make it work a little bit further and make it more punchy. Now the noise, well, I mean noise, a little bit of the pixelation is still there, which I think again on this example can work quite well as a kind of cinematic effect. So that worked really well. I like the framing here. I think that works really nicely. I think the color of the skin and the overall body creates a really nice contrast with the background. So that's all good there as well. It's very natural edit. It's very interesting. I like the reflection. So all in all, Weasley, actually, I think this works really well. You know, I can't really tell you much. about it, I think it's very well done. I think technically it's well captured. I think the editing is very nice and gentle while still creating quite nice punch with the contrast of the colors and the light. And yeah, just nicely put together. Well done. Now, moving on the second image. So this is the edited photo. This is the before. I would love to know what we're looking at. It looks like some kind of statue on the island, but I'm just not 100% sure on what we're looking at. Anyway, we have this kind of object here, again captured with Nikon Z7 with 28 to 300 millimeters. From the camera settings, ISO 400, f9, 1/200 of a second. Nothing complicated here. A little bit higher ISO, I think, for these conditions, but okay, f9, giving you quite nice performance from the lens, 1/200 of a second, giving you good sharpness and good texture in the sky. Yep, sharpness all good, noise pretty much minimal. There is a little bit in the sky, but nothing too crazy, so all good there. The light, it is what it is. It's kind of brighter in the back, more darker in the foreground, but that's all good. So let's have a look at what you created here. And again, I like what you've done here, except I think we still have a little bit of extra vignetting at the top, which probably I would simply remove just by cropping the image a little bit tighter. If you like this shape, you can, but I would personally just basically use a little bit of the free cropping, and I would use the rule I was talking about earlier, where basically I would use about 2/3 of the sky, 1/3 of the ground. So to create something like this way, you're adding more focus on the actual subject here, and then you're also getting rid of some of the vignetting there. Other than that, I think the edit is really nice. We have a nice brightness now on the foreground, darker background, creating lovely contrast. Nice light in the foreground and background. So altogether, visually well put together. So there you have it. These are my views of your two images. Thank you for sending them over. And as always, if you have more, send them for the next episode. Still looking at the mixed team photographers, now we are with Zdeněk, who is one of our regular photographers, and often he sends us mix of landscape and wildlife photography. Looking at the wildlife capture, if you don't know, well, Zdeněk is actually based in South Africa, and this is why we have access to these incredible captures from this part of the world. So, as always, starting from the technical part and looking at his images, we have this stunning capture of rhino. As Zdeněk, if I could just not talk for the next 2-3 minutes and just look at the photo, that would be enough, because this one is amazing. Beautiful, beautiful capture, lovely edit. Everything is great about it. If I could, I would just press print and put it on my wall right there. It's just beautiful, well done, well presented. But let's talk about some of the stuff that work really well here. Looking at the camera settings, to capture this one, Canon 5D Mark IV with the 100 to 400 millimeters. Obviously, wildlife, golden hour, lower light situation, higher ISO as you would, with higher shutter speed in order to get this level of sharpness. So ISO 1250 with 1/1250th of a second. Now talking about the f-stop, f5.6 and 400 millimeters on the lens. So with 400 millimeters, the f5.6 giving you this quite nice soft background, which works really well. But I think it's all about the details. It's so beautiful, beautiful texture, beautiful details, beautiful light. Everything works here. Super, super well done and well put together. Now, the light is beautiful, so all that good, sharpness is good, noise, well, it's not really about noise, but it's well handled as well, so all good there. Now, talking about the composition, why does it work? For many different reasons. Well positioned animal together with extra space in front of it to create a little bit of active space the animal could almost walk into. The softer background giving us a really nice contrast between the sharpness of the animal and softer background. Also, the color of the animal and the colors behind and around create really nice contrast together, adding even more attention to the main subject, which doesn't necessarily need it because it's really there. When you look at it, you know immediately what it's about. So, Zdeněk, this picture is incredible. And I think it must be one of my favorite pictures I ever seen from you. So, well done. Now, looking at the second photo, talking about a little bit of landscape, probably looking at one of the parks. also very nice, but obviously coming from the wildlife capture, now it's a little bit tricky here, but it's well put together as well. Canon 77D, 24 to 105 millimeters here with the camera settings, nice and low ISO on 100, 24 millimeters to give us this wide view, f11, giving you great result right here from the front all the way to the back, and 1/100 of a second, giving us nice details in the sky, nice exposure, and lots of sharpness all the way through. So all good there on that. Camera settings good. Yes, it's a little bit contrasty. It's a little bit high frequency. That's what I like to call it. You know, you have lots of little details which can get a little bit overwhelming for the human eyes. You know, we're talking about different shadows, different texture, different pieces, elements. But in overall, you know, the leading line works really well, creating a really nice opening scene. The sky makes it a little bit more lively. And I think together it's really nice. I would probably, at the end of the day, make it black and white. And the reason here why I would make it black and white is because we already have all these textures and details and branches and shadows and light. But on top of it, we also have the color, which is another element that just makes it a little bit overwhelming. And to lower that, we can't do anything about the texture and we can't do anything about the light. So one of the elements we can remove is the color. And I think it just makes it a little bit less distracting. Then it makes it too contrasty. Obviously, you would have to work with what you have, see how you could open up some of the shadows, how to just make it a little bit less dramatic for that. And then some nice dodge and burn just to create, you know, a little bit more focus on where you want to guide the eyes. So we could, for example, really play around and focus on the path here with a little inner light there and just create maybe something like this. Yeah, maybe somewhere around here. So it's just an idea. It's more creative kind of idea to inspire you for something in the future, because you kind of started here and you go to here and you can see how here just lots and lots is happening. On this one, it's a little bit more straightforward, a little bit less heavy on the eye. And yeah, I think it could work really well. Zdeněk, thank you so much for sending the images over. This definitely is this week's favorite. Incredible, beautiful capture and beautifully done image. You know what to do for next episode. I can't wait to see more of your photos. Unusually for us here at the Photography Review Show, this week we have a pet photographer, David. We have 3 of your images, which I was really happy to see actually, because we have lots of landscape photographers, wildlife photographers, some portrait photographers as well, but pets is something a little bit different. So thank you so much for sending your photos over. It's really great to see them, and I can't wait to look at them through the show. So looking at 3 of the dogs here, they all very cute, each one in different ways. Here, very kind of romantic, lovely way, the way the dog look, very nicely captured. Here, obviously, little cheeky look with the kind of black and white contrast with the hair going around. All good there. And then lovely photo here with just the one eye poking through all the hair. Again, nicely put together. David, how do we do this? So let's start with this one. We're going to go a little bit deeper in the different camera details here. So captured with Canon R7 with the 18 to 35 millimeters. From the camera settings here, ISO 800, f1.8 and 1/80th of a second. I can see that on the lens 35 millimeters, so that's all good there. Now with the f1.8, let's have a look. So the sharpness and the focus is really on the eye. That works really well. You can see already how the nose is a little bit softer, and how about here it start to go gradually into a little bit of the softness there. Now for this type of photo, for this kind of portrait look, I think that works really, really well. Give you that very nice effect. I think another thing that works really well is the blend with the texture. I think that looks beautiful, very romantic. And if I would be a dog owner, I would be very happy with the result. So interesting light coming from a side. That works nicely. Yeah, from the camera settings, I think that work all well work together with the sharpening and the focus. So all good there. So talking more about the artistic part, one thing that kind of is a shame, and that could be more about the size of the image. It's just this little line around. I find it a little bit distracting. But again, as I say, maybe it's the way I look at it at the screen and it's the size of the image. So I'm not too worried about it. What I think works really well, again, is the texture and the work with the vignette and the dodge and burn, adding more contrast on the animal. The look of the animal works really well. The focus, the sharpening works really well. So all of it put together, very well done. When we're talking about editing, the mix with the texture is really nicely done. The light works nicely, very natural colors, kind of making it more fine art rather than very realistic outside running dog. But I think that definitely is something what is well done and well put together. So that's on that. Now, still beautiful work here with the texture. I think the gray one works great with the dog. I think it's super well done. Again, clearly you know what you're doing with the focus because the sharpening again is well put together. A little bit higher f-stop, giving you more details in the nose, which I think work very well. And also give you more details around the hair. So again, well put together. It's a lovely capture. We can go through the details again, but it's the same camera, same lens, different settings here, lower ISO, a little bit higher f-stop, and pretty much similar, sorry, pretty much similar shutter speed, just 1/60th of a second. Lots of lovely details. Yeah, lovely light coming from the side. Well put together, lovely depth, again, creating beautiful scene. And for the editing, different kind of details, a little bit more cool, fresh look, but again, well put together with the texture and just very creative way of capturing animal, in this case, the dog. And finally, different sort, this and this kind of work nicely together with the floor. Obviously here, we have the floor, we have a little bit of reflection, a little bit less texture, or at least visible texture on this one. But I think this is all about the composition. I think the one eye poking through all the hair is quite cute. I think it works really well. Again, here, higher ISO a little bit, higher f-stop as well. I wonder if you adjust the f-stop based on maybe the size of the dog, or probably about how you are far from the animal. But yeah, it works really well. Again, the sharpness is clear around the eye and with the nose, 1/60th of a second. So obviously the dogs are quite calm at that point, but it worked very nice. David, lovely. If I would have to choose my favorite, I think it would be the middle one. I think it's beautiful, but they are all cute, well put together. You clearly know what you're doing. So it was great to look at your images. If you have more, make sure you send them to us for the next episode. And the same goes for all of you folks. If you have images you would like to join us with, if you're already part of our membership, just check the membership zone or the Clever Photographer Academy. If you are not part of our membership, then head to our website, cleverphotographer.com/forward membership. Find out more there about it and join us with your own images already next week here at the Clever Photographer YouTube channel or Clever Photographer Facebook page. Folks, have a lovely evening. Thank you again for joining me, and I can't wait to see you in the next week's episode.